So I couldn't have asked for a better introduction this morning when we were asked to address the elephant in the room and talk about psychological safety. Because that's why I'm here. And my name is Mikkel, and I want to tell you exactly about that. But I want to start where all good things start, with a story. I want to tell you about the first job I got out of uni, straight out working for a small tech startup in Copenhagen doing web development. And on my first day, they gave me a task to build a calendar component for their app. And I thought to myself, you know what? I know what a calendar is. This is going to be great. And it was. I started out a couple hours down the line, worked fine until I hit this tiny snag. This little thing that I just could not get right, but I didn't want to hand it in before I got it done. Hours went by, and suddenly the day ended. I went home dejected that I didn't get to hand it in that day. But I thought to myself, you know, I'll get right back on it in the morning and knock it out of the park. Only I didn't. Further hours, and finally defeated, I asked a coworker for help, and we solved it in less than 10 minutes. And I've brought this struggle with you today. And as you can all see, this is the terrible thing I did, right? You all see the issue, right? 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 So, for those of you in the back, I can tell you that there's a tiny misalignment in the grid of this calendar. And if you've ever worked with CSS, maybe you know my pain. But perhaps more interesting than CSS, if there is such a thing, is, you know, why does this happen? Why do I spend hours on this? And, you know, the interesting thing is that it turns out that none of us really jump out of bed in the morning because we just cannot wait to go to work so that we can look ignorant, incompetent, you know, intrusive or negative. And thankfully, it's super easy to avoid, right? If you don't ask any questions, don't admit your mistakes, don't offer up ideas or challenge the way things are, you're completely safe. None of these will happen. And we do this all the time because it's second nature to us. Because from very, very young age, we learn something called impression management, a constant background process that we have running that manages the impressions of those around us. Something that is active when you're in a meeting with your team, on a phone call with your mom, or maybe when giving a talk in front of a bunch of strangers. But maybe you don't want this. Maybe you don't want to spend 7 hours aligning a CSS script before asking for help. Maybe you would much rather have a culture where you can do the things on the right and not worry about the things on the left. Maybe what you want is a culture of psychological safety. But what does that look like? You know, because some people might think that this is what it looks like. Complete kumbaya around the fire, everyone having a good time, and nobody is challenging anyone, and it's just safe and nice. But that's actually not true. Because good psychological safety is not about comfort. And it's also not about being nice or being politically correct or being careful. It's actually quite the opposite. Because good psychological safety is about removing inhibitors so that you can have the hard talks. So you can address the elephant in the room and actually do something about it. And this is the important part, the latter half, doing something about it. Because good psychological safety doesn't have to be just nice. It's about getting everyone's brains and voices in the game so that you have the highest potential for value. Or to put it more simply, more input, more cool things. Right? But I also have to be honest. It's not a magic buzzword. It won't fix every issue you have at all. However, it might help you understand the culture that you already have, because psychological safety affects all software teams. As I'm sure many of you are aware, Google found in 2016 that it was the largest predictor of software team efficiency. And it's been heavily featured in the state of DevOps ever since. So what can we do about it? Or perhaps more interestingly, at least for me, how do we enable our teams to actually start working with psychological safety? And this is a question I set out to ask and answer a number of years ago. And since then, I've been working with researchers, practitioners, and software teams alike to come up with a set of tools for working with psychological safety. Actual processes that you can take and implement in your teams today. And we designed these tools with one very simple goal in mind. We wanted to sew working with psychological safety into the daily routine of software teams in a way that allowed them to practice and explore psychological safety in an assistive and actionable way, with a really high stress on this latter point. Because that's the hard bit, right? Now you might ask me, Mikkel, does that mean that these tools will just magically give us psychological safety? And I have to be honest, unfortunately not, right? You all know there's no silver bullet, magic potion, or religious miracle, but I have found some things to be true when using these tools with software teams that I would love to share with you today. Namely, my 3 main takeaways of doing this. Number 1 being that being aware makes it better. Just talking about psychological safety in your team does a lot for it. And the way you do that is by booking your calendar with prompts to discuss psychological safety. Even, or perhaps especially if you think there is nothing to be said. I cannot tell you how many awesome conversations I've been part of, where everyone going into it was like, we're fine, it's not a problem. But they never talked about why they thought they were fine. And finally, you know, as with anything else, repeated attention means continuous improvement. So find a way to include it in your work in a simple and sustainable manner. Because I hope that I've shown with these that psychological safety doesn't have to be an abstract or strategic goal. It can be within your grasp. If you follow these 3 points, with or without the tools I've shared here, you will see improvements. So let's try and commit to making psychological safety part of our practice so we can watch both our teams and our projects flourish.